Hello, I'm Doug, and this is the Taste and Sensibility channel, and today we're starting a new series on, we'll call it chilies and peppers. I just want to call it chilies, but a lot of people just know these things as peppers. So just to be more clickbaitish and talk in a language that people can understand, we're going to say chilies and peppers. And I've been a spicy food aficionado for quite a while, and it kind of surprised me when I discovered it 30, 40 years ago. And just recently I came across this book. It's probably 20, 30 years old now. Let me look it up to be sure. Copyright 1991 by Mark Miller. He's a chef at a Santa Fe restaurant, or was at the time he did this, and this is just such a great resource. Maybe first half of it is all about fresh chilies. He's got a history section. I mean, he's got photos, and that's what we're doing today, a green bell pepper. And he's got very good color photos, so you can pick them out, and he tells you about heat levels. He just says a simple 1 to 10 scale. So you don't have to know about hundreds of thousands of Scoville units or anything like that. And then about halfway through, he starts with a dried section, Sika, and describes how they're used in cooking. So this is my number one resource that I'm using a lot, and I'm really just going to get fresh peppers for the most part from that I can get around here. I'm picturing maybe 15, 16 episodes with fresh peppers that I can get. I'm going to taste them. I'm going to put them in food. I'm going to try them different ways. And we'll see how it goes. And then I'm starting out at the zero end of the heat scale. This is green, everyone knows green bell peppers. And the first couple episodes after this are going to be zero heat, but then it's going to start stepping up a little bit from bananas or anaheims or poblanos up through habanero. Might be the last thing I actually eat in something, but I don't think I'll eat it neat. But maybe a serrano might be the last thing, or a little ornamental Tabasco-like pepper might be the last thing I eat neat. So this is not clickbaity. This is not to get reactions or anything. This is just describing the flavors I'm coming across in the chilies, and how to use them in food, and what kinds of things you can expect when you get them in food. So I think chilies are pretty much a New World thing that grew in Central and South America and southern Mexico, and kind of spread around. People groups traded them or swapped, and birds would carry seeds around and cover the whole, carpet bomb the whole area. So they got moved around quite a bit, and then they started getting cultivated and domesticated and improved. So there were lots of kinds. So there's a really good history section in here describing how the I guess an Indian group, the Nahuatl Indians in southern Mexico and northern Central America, had a plant that they just called a chili, and two L's. Chilli is the name that's given here. And then the other naming event was Columbus's discovery of capsicum, this kind of plant. Chilies native to the New World, he called peppers, and took back seeds, and these are very popular. These are very good for cooking, and spread all over the world after that point. But he called them peppers, thinking it was a black pepper plant. But I bet they were surprised when it grew these little green and red things. So I will do a little section on the heat, on capsaicin, the chemical compound that gives the spicier chilies their flavor, but that is not a topic today, because we are just looking at the homely, lowly, garden variety green bell pepper, which is also in Mark Miller's book. So I'll have a few photos, but an interesting thing that is often done with the chilies and peppers in lots of Mexican cooking, lots of New Mexico cooking, all sorts of Southwest stuff, is roasting a pepper. So here, this is a totally fresh one. Here's one that I roasted a couple hours ago, and I've let it cool off, get to room temperature, and I'll be tasting that alongside this. Another thing that I'll do quite a bit, partly to avoid eating the chilies neat, plain in the hottest form is to make a salsa. So this is really odd to make a salsa featuring a green bell pepper, but I also made one featuring a roasted bell pepper. So we'll get to test the fresh versus roasted flavor profile in a real application, where you might be able to pick up differences or want to do it with other chilies and peppers. So I'm going to be putting the hotter chilies into a salsa like this and tasting it and see how much heat I can stand. I might be putting it into omelets. So I can see habanero ending up in a salsa, ending up in an omelet, tiny little bits, not very much, because I'm not going to eat that thing plain. And I'm going to have it a little bit cooked and a little bit diluted by other food. That's common for that, that's a common flavoring agent or seasoning. So let's just get started today with this green bell pepper. There's quite a range of flavors. You just buy these at the store, buy them for 50 cents or 40 cents or whatever, and get them home. And some of them are kind of watery tasting. Some of them are really green, intense vegetable notes, strong green. And you just put it in your mouth and you go, that's green. And I was dissatisfied with the ones that went into the salsa here. I went to a different store and pulled out some. This has an aroma like you wouldn't believe. And then when I roasted one of its bin mates, that roasted aroma is also intense. So I'm hoping I got one of the really good green aromatic ones. So I don't know what to do other than to cut it open and dive in. So I'm just going to cut it down the middle and get a strip and see what I can tell about aroma and flavor. Oh, this is easy. So that's pretty much what you see in almost all the peppers, is a series of ribs and some seeds that hang around close to the stem area. The rest of it might be fairly devoid of seeds down below halfway and might not have much in the way of ribs. But in the spicier chilies, lots of the capsaicin is in the ribs. So if you want to cut down on the heat, you could pull out some of that, but don't cut down on the total mass of chilies or pepper that goes into your dish. Take out seeds, take out the ribs. The seeds aren't really hot, but the ribs hold the seeds, so they're pretty closely related. So I'm going to sniff on this cut edge. That is pretty strong. That's pretty green. I am hoping this is one of those really good, tasty ones. So, yeah, it's stemmy, leafy, vegetal. Green is the best word. It just pops into my head. And it's just average. It's not really intense. Nothing spicy about it, but there's a sweetness. It's very thick, succulent flesh. It's full of water. It's got quite a bit of aroma. It has those green vegetal notes. So I'm sure everyone's eaten these and put it into some sort of cooking, some sort of cuisine, some sort of dish. I live in New Orleans, and this goes in half the stuff that's cooked here. So I'd say that's right down the middle of the plate. It's not too watery, and it's not one of those real intense green things with lots of herbal and vegetal notes. So I'm slightly disappointed that it wasn't super intense, but that's what you're going to get when you go to a grocery store for these mass-produced, mass-grown, picked, harvested, transported. Yeah, I think I'm picking up a charred aroma. The green pepper flavor is there, and Something's getting added to it. I have 6 surfaces pretty charred and blistered. Maybe 4 out of 6. So the aroma that I'm getting right now off this thing is so much more deep and rich than any bell pepper I've ever been around. You can tell it's that green vegetal note, but it's got something extra. Richer, fuller, deeper, and more savory. So I think I'm going to call it. It is charred, blackened, more than 50% of the surface area. A little bit lacking on each end. That's about it. So you don't want to eat the black stuff. It is bitter, but when it cools off, it will peel easily. So we'll just let it cool off by itself. Now I'm cutting into my roasted green bell pepper. I should have really cut off some of the skin. Once you roast it and let it cool off, you'll want to remove the skin, at least all the charred parts, because it's going to be bitter. Might not want all that black stuff in your dish or whatever thing you're making. Lots of people wash it off in a stream of water to get all the little bits of skin off, and other people, oh no, don't get rid of the oils like that. Don't do that. A lot of people put this in a plastic bag to sweat, and just wait for it to cool off, and then it's very easy to scrape off all the scorched and charred peel. So here we have pretty much a whole piece of roasted green bell pepper. So let's see how it's different. The aroma is much richer, savory, buttery, a whole different set of notes come out of the roasted one. So there's still a sweetness, but there's a richer, roasted, cooked, savory, approaching meatiness. It's starting to be like a ham or a turkey breast kind of vibe to it. And just a couple of aroma notes, a couple of taste notes. They're not strong or intense, but they're leaning in a direction they weren't going before. So that adds a whole new dimension to any cooking that you do. Or just roasting a green bell pepper adds a whole new flavor component that wasn't present in the fresh one. Wonderful, wonderful. And again, zero heat, as you probably know. So that could transform lots of dishes from something ordinary to something really good. Now I'm going to move on to salsas. So this is the one that's made with fresh. Okay, let me talk about that for a little bit. Doesn't really matter for this one because it's very boring to make a salsa where the main flavor component is the green bell pepper. But I am going to use a standard recipe, and all the ingredients are over here. So this is using red and white onions, canned fire roasted tomatoes. Okay, these get roasted on a grill when I make the salsa. Garlic gets roasted in a skillet or a grill when I make the salsa. Use some fresh lime juice, and then I use canned fire roasted tomatoes. These are a 365 brand organic tomatoes from Whole Foods, and I find a reasonable salt level in here, and they're diced to a nice consistency. So this will make me 3 batches of my recipe. Every bit of the onion goes in. I cut off the ends a little bit when I'm after roasting. Take off a layer or two. None of the paper stuff goes in from the garlic, but everything inside that's roasted gets caramelized, and you can tell some of the sugars are getting sticky, and yeah, it's good stuff when you roast all these. So I will have the recipe in the description of every one we do where there's a salsa. So it's the same recipe, and I'm probably putting in different amounts of the main spicy chili. This one was probably fully 1/3 of the mass of the salsa with the green bell pepper. And you can still barely taste it. The tomatoes are strong, onion strong, garlic strong. And I don't add any salt. I don't put in cilantro. I don't put in oregano. None of that stuff that you would want in your normal good salsa where you're wanting to taste good stuff. I'm not putting in here. I just want a matrix where I can, a natural, normal matrix for a pepper flavor to come through, a chili flavor to come through. So I'm going to try the fresh green bell pepper salsa. Wow. It's sweet from the tomatoes, and it definitely tells the green bell pepper. It is part of the conversation. It's not strong notes, but it's definitely green, vegetal, fresh. Yeah, it's a smiley, happy flavor. It's not overly salty, but the chips are bringing some salt now. So as we move along up the spice scale, we are going to be tasting more and more heat out of this, but this is a pretty good base to pick out chili flavors in, even though there's not much of a spiciness here. Now going over to the roasted green bell pepper salsa, I'll try to tell what the differences are. There's still the sweetness that's sort of been transformed, put over in a caramely, roasted, burnt, scorched, yeah, caramelized sugars of some sort, caramelized sweetness, darker, browner. That savory suggestion comes through. So just roasting the pepper, which is 1/3 of the mass that's over here. Tomatoes, tomato juice, onion, lime juice. But 1/3 of the mass is roasted green bell pepper. And it's a pretty subtle flavor. There's not spice, there's not heat, there's not spiciness, but the roasted character of it comes right through. It is night and day different from this. So I did this to a couple of poblanos, did it to a couple of jalapenos, and I'll be doing habanero experiments also after I get over my fear. But this is a great treatment to transform some of the flavors from chilies and peppers that you're used to into something that's a whole different thing. So that's one of the things I'm learning here. And you're having to watch me learn all these things. So this is a pretty good salsa for having no spice or heat. So if you use the green bell peppers, then use them in your cooking. Or if you don't use them in your cooking, you can make quite a difference by roasting this over a flame, on a grill, in a cast iron skillet, just on a gas burner on a stove. is sufficient. So we'll get into that. There's going to be B-roll, lots of the episodes. There's probably some in this one. So look at that description down below for a couple of interesting introductory videos to the whole chili world. One by Rick Bayless of Frontera Grill in Chicago. And he's done a zillion kinds of cooking shows. Lots of them on YouTube. And then another a Texas chef with a really good introduction to chilies. And of course I'll have a link to this book and how you can get it. And you can also find information on other books. Books are not about chilies necessarily, but they have chapters or sections featuring chilies and a little education about them. So this is Tex-Mex from Scratch by Jonas Cranby. This one is Dishing Up New Mexico by Dave DeWitt. This one is Santa Fe School of Cooking Cookbook by Susan Curtis. All these have wonderful sections. I bet this one is mostly New Mexico chilies. And then here's one called Chipotle, Smoky Hot Recipes for All Occasions by Leda Scheintaub. So all these are good resources for one chili or another. So I think that will do it for this episode. So if you like the videos you've been seeing on this channel, please hit that thumbs up and leave comments and questions down below. Share this video with people you think might be interested, and subscribe to the channel. And when you click the bell, you're going to get notified every time a new video pops up, usually on Mondays. So come back for the next one, and cheers.